Will Jussie Smollett take the witness stand in his trial? AP correspondent Oscar Wells Gabriel says the trial resumes today in Chicago. And that is a big question.
The biggest question yet to be answered is whether the former Empire actor will take the stand in his own defense. Of course, he is not required to, but some legal observers suggest he might have to. This after the two top prosecution witnesses have had their say with jurors. The two brothers have testified that Smallett cooked up the whole idea for them to beat him up and make it look like a hate crime, and even rehearsed with him on how to do it. Risky as it may be, Smollett's taking the stand might give the jury a chance to see the case from the actor's perspective instead of simply relying on the prosecutor's narrative. I'm Oscar Wells Gabriel.
Hey everybody, hey Linda, hey Andre, hey Dave. So glad to see you all this morning.
It costs $1 billion.
Oh boy.
Nearly 90% of it is federal money. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
I-65 southbound traffic is stop and go from 49th Avenue to near 61st Avenue. There's a crash. Two right lanes are blocked. There's a rollover semi involved. You're looking at about a 10 to 15 minute delay. Northbound traffic is heavy 61st to 53rd. It's Gaber's delay, a milder slowdown. Inbound Kennedy, trip time O'Hare to downtown is 17 minutes. Outbound, it's 20. For the Eisenhower, 23 minutes inbound or outbound between downtown and 390. Inbound Stevenson traffic bunches up just a bit approaching the Ryan. 23 minutes from the Veterans Memorial Tollway to DeSable Lakeshore Drive. Ryan, 12 minutes, 95th to downtown. Winfield, there's a crash, County Farm at Geneva Road. That's traffic. I'm Telemonte.
Eric Grants invites you to the family meeting every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. for conversations like you'd have at a family barbecue. And you never know who's going to drop by on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey everybody, you know we're going to be talking about the Jussie Smollett case today. Will he take the stand? Will he not take the stand? I think it's important for us to see a lot of the inconsistencies in how this case has been treated, because particularly since we do not have cameras in this courtroom. Let me fully disclose, I was with Jussie and his family on Saturday. Had a great time with them. He is a friend. But I'm concerned, not just because he's a friend,
you're looking to buy, please call me.
But because I think this could happen to any of us at any time.
Talk to your realtor.
That to me is what's concerning.
Time and hassle. So call me at 847-423-0301.
So let's get right to it, everybody. So glad that you're here. Abraham, how you doing, my sweet, down there in Venezuela? Touches me so greatly that you've taken me into your heart. You have no idea what that means to me. Thank you, Abraham.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter. Eric Grants invites you to the family meeting every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. for conversation.
10 seconds.
Family barbecue. And you never know who's going to drop by.
Let's have a great show.
WCPT
God bless us.
820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's a joy to be with you today, Monday, December 6th, 2021, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to call me today at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. You can text me at that number. And I want to hear your thoughts. Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I want to hear you in Chicago and all around the country and all around the world, those of you who are streaming us on the Santita Jackson and Friends page and on the Santita Jackson YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, to get us some feedback, Devin. So, you know, everybody, I want to hear your thoughts today. Of course, today in Chicago, a big national, indeed an international story is whether Jussie Smollett will take the stand. The prosecution rested their case last week, and they will, the defense will be putting on their case today. So we'll see what's going to happen. We're going to see what kind of case, or no, we won't see it. We'll hear about it. I wish they had cameras in that courtroom, don't you? We're going to talk about that in the second hour. And we're going to be talking about COVID-19, coping with COVID. As many of you found out over the weekend, our beloved Dr. Deborah Holden has COVID-19. She has it. She is resting comfortably. I've spoken with her every day, and she's been doing quite well. But that having been said, we've got to talk about coping with COVID. So send her, lift your hands up, send her love, prayers, and healing energy. She and her daughter Jordan, they did send baby India away with family. But we're going to be talking about that with Dr. Shanita Knighton, and who knows, Dr. Deb might be with us as well. But we're going to be talking about coping with COVID. I wanted to know if she'd been prescribed any medications, if she'd been given that opportunity. As people in Florida, they have that option. As the governor of Texas, when he fully vaccinated, as Dr. Verholden is, when he tested COVID positive, they put him on Regeneron immediately. So we got a lot to talk about today on the Santita Jackson Show, and of course we're going to get some good news. So let's get right to it. Monday, December 6th, 2021, not just 3 weeks away from Christmas. Oh, you know I love it. Happy Hanukkah to all of my Jewish brothers and sisters, and to our Muslim brothers and sisters who've also been in a holy season. God bless everyone. God bless everyone. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 35 degrees. Okay, that was wishful thinking. I'm sorry. 35 degrees, and it will be cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 15 degrees. It's wishful thinking, everybody, and it will be cloudy. In the NFL, this was painful yesterday. The Bears, 22. The Cardinals, 33. Oh my gosh, the Bears are 4-8. Oh, the Vikings, well, they fell to the Lions. The Lions, 29. And the Vikings 27. And tonight we're going to have some great NBA action. Atlanta will be visiting the Timberwolves, and the Nuggets will be visiting the Bulls here in Chicago in the NHL. Well, Chicago was triumphant over the New York Islanders, everybody, 3-2. Dedicating the show to, yes, a Republican, Robert Dole. Back in the day when you used to have gentlemen in the Senate, when you had statesmen and women in the Senate, people who would talk to each other and work with each other. He is really a giant of that era. Indeed, in 1996, he ran against President Clinton as the Republican nominee. He made his transition at 98. And of course, we do know that he was a World War II veteran, seriously injured in that war, but came back to become a great public servant. And may God bless him and his wife, Elizabeth Dole, and his surviving children. God bless him. He remained critical of the Republican Party after he left office. This Republican Party that we see today is not the Republican Party of Robert Dole. May peace be upon his soul. The Michigan shooting, everybody. Oh, did you see what happened on Friday night? The parents of Ethan Crumbley, the 15-year-old accused of fatally shooting 4 of his classmates, killing them actually, and injuring 7 others at this Michigan high school, Oxford High School, have been arrested and jailed after spending part of the weekend on the run. Indeed, they were picked up in Detroit in a warehouse. One of their cars had been abandoned. The other car, well, it was just outside of this warehouse where they were locked in a room. Now, Detroit is about 40 miles from where they live. What's significant about Detroit? Many law enforcement officials have speculated that they were planning to escape to Canada, because if you go to Detroit, you know that a city like Detroit, the bridge takes you into Canada, and that is where you go regularly. You go grocery shopping, you get medicine, you get clothes, all of that. What was going to happen, everybody? We will see what's going to happen. Collectively, James and Jennifer Crumbley are being held on $1 million bail, $500,000 apiece. But it is significant that they have been charged in these murders. What do you think? I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. Let me know if you think that it's right for them to have been charged. Let me know if you think Kyle Rittenhouse's mother should have been charged too. What do you think about that, everybody? Call me. The United States is averaging more than 100,000 new COVID-19 cases a day. The first time the country has crossed that threshold in 2 months. Deaths are also on the rise, with an average of more than 1,600 people dying from COVID each day over the past 7 days. Thanksgiving gatherings are being credited with this uptick. That having been said, we are beginning to see that Omicron might not be as deadly as we feared. Dr. Fauci on Omicron said it does not look like there's a great degree of severity to it, as has the South African Medical Association. The president of it said it's really like a very, very bad cold. So we will see as we continue to monitor COVID-19 and as we have this discussion about it today, everybody. So what about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar? Love that woman. She called Kevin McCarthy, the minority leader in the House of Representatives, a liar and a coward for refusing to condemn his colleagues' Islamophobia. This is who they are, she said, and we have to be able to stand up to them, and we have to push them to reckon with the fact that their party right now is normalizing anti-Muslim bigotry, everybody. What do you think about that? I love those strong words, everybody. Love it, love it, love it. And Jesse Smallett, will he take the stand today? We do not know. We will see. Over half of young adults in the United States are obese or overweight, according to a study from Johns Hopkins, everybody. What does that mean about our health? Oh, let's get some good news from Pastor Todd Yeary. I need that today. How are you, Pastor Yeary?
Good morning, Santita. I am well. I'm glad you didn't announce the foolishness from yesterday's Ravens game before I left.
I was going to leave that to you. Didn't want to break your day. I want to make your day.
Honey, let me just go on and tell you. Look, math is a basic thing. It is really a basic thing. I appreciate the coach trying to win with 2 points at the end, but at the end of the day, you got the best kicker in the league. You tie that game and extend it out and keep on moving. But that's a whole other thing. But other than that, been a great. I'm well. I hope you're well.
Yes.
Also, we'll just keep on moving. Let me tell you about Ilhan Omar, the great congresswoman. She just basically called Kevin McCarthy a punk. I don't even know what that meant. I was like, dog, she is like, for real. Don't make her mad. Do not make her mad on principle. She is a principled woman, and I appreciate certainly her leadership and her perspective. But other than that, I'm great. Let's go on and get to some good news, because you know what? We got to get moving. Good morning, Chicago. Come on, Twin Cities. Time to wake up. Time to get moving. Weekend's over. I know that's a downer, but you got work to do. You got to get up and do some things today, so you might as well wake up, put your feet on the floor, feel the towel coming back at you under your feet. Take a deep breath. Fill your lungs with, here it is, L-I-F-E. Fill it with life. You're alive. Time to get up. Time to get moving. Start that morning beverage, that morning Joe, that orange juice. Drink that water. Got to stay hydrated, especially in the wintertime, because you got work to do, and it is called literally changing the world. I want to talk to you this morning, to all of you, regardless of your faith perspective. We can learn something from all of the great world religions. I taught world religions many years ago. Not going to tell you how many it might give you away, because I'm only 21. You're going to be impressed with how much I've done in such a short period of time. But come on now. But we all wrestle with the essential question about why are we here? What does it mean to live? And so for Christian believers, we're now in the season called Advent, the season of hopeful waiting. And I want to ask you this fundamental question. What are you expecting now that Thanksgiving is behind us? Boy, was it was good. That food was so good. And now we're finding ourselves moving into a new season of life. Advent is the time that Christian believers believe that the arrival of Jesus is announced and the world awaited in expectation. Advent is a special time in the life of Christian believers, and I believe there's a principle that applies to all of us. And while we observe, typically religiously, Advent as a seasonal thing, I'm suggesting that Advent, the living with expectation, should really be your lifestyle. Many times in life, we never get what we want or what we can have because we become satisfied with the way things are. Our love of the status quo causes us to miss the continual blessings of God. Why? Because many of us look to God only when we're in trouble and not when things might be going well. And while we do have crises that arise in our lives, we are most vulnerable when things are going okay for us. How do we move from being satisfied, just complacent, to igniting the desire for a fresh blessing. We must continually look for God in new ways. This is your season of Advent. It's a season of expectation. The children of Israel, according to the Christian perspective, had only known God in the form of the tabernacle, the ark, the temple. Now they were experiencing God in a whole new way. What an awesome thought that you can experience God in new and adventurous ways, exciting ways, because Advent offers us that opportunity. So here's what I want you to do. Look for God in a new way in your life today. Expect God to show you something that you've never seen before today. Anticipate God to be present in your life in such a significant way until you'll have to tell it. Yes, honey, tell it. Tell everybody that God is at work in your life. God is coming into your life in a whole new way in this season. I believe it. I hope you believe it too. Now live in the faithful expectation that you're going to see God do what you've never seen God do before. Today is still the best day of your life. Now live today in expectation, believing that this is your Advent. This is your season of hopeful waiting. God is going to come to you in a whole new way, and appreciate that you are God's winner. Have a great day. I can't wait to hear what God's going to do in your life in this season of hopeful expectation.
And I want you to stay right here because we do need this. You know, I have Dr. Deborah Holden, who you brought into our lives. What a blessing, what a godsend she's been. And she's brought in yet another godsend, Dr. Shanita Knighton, Dr. Deborah Holden, coming out of Johns Hopkins University, epidemiologist, world-renowned epidemiologist, the Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University's School of Medicine. And she comes to us every morning, come rain or come shine. And we're always so excited to have her. And she said, you know what, we need someone else. We need someone who helps us to understand how we can prevent not just COVID, but infections, how we can be as healthful as we can possibly be. Well, you know, we were all blown back last week, Reverend Pastor Todd Urey from the Douglas Memorial Community Church, when Dr. Holden said to me, girl, I've got COVID. I said, okay. Well, praise the Lord, because I do believe in the healing power of God. I do believe in that. And plus, I know that if handled properly, COVID is very survivable. I was still, nonetheless, I think we were all concerned when she posted and shared this information with us at the end of last week. So if you could give her a word of encouragement, Pastor, before we move into this conversation today.
Well, here's the word of encouragement. You know, I've known Deborah Holden for years. We partnered in Baltimore on projects before she left to go to Michigan State University. Here's what I know. The tenacity that is her, not just a part of her, and the focus that she has invested in so many others is at work even in this moment. Sometimes we have to experience what others go through, because God very often needs credible witnesses, not incredible, but credible, those whose words we can take to be grounded in integrity and truth. She has given us that throughout this entire pandemic. And now, though we recognize that as we've been advocating for making sure folks had access to testing and treatment and all of those things that are made as resources, she is now the credible vessel to say, look, this is not your past. You still got to make sure that you do what you have to do to keep yourself safe and healthy, but also you got to keep living. Yes. Because sometimes life happens in a way that you're not expecting. And it's not an excuse to decide that you're going to step away or back down. It's time to remember that life is a gift, and the best gift you have is today. That's why they call today the present. This is your gift. Use your gift. And Deborah Holden, I promise you, you're not going to be able to keep her down. Now, this is going to be the trick. Can you keep her still?
No.
That's the whole thing.
No.
Now,
no. No. I told you I've had a gab fest with her every day.
Yeah, so keep her still. You ain't gonna keep her down, but I'm gonna see about this keeping her still. But she's gonna bounce back. She does it all the time, and she's gonna show us how to do it with some grit and some integrity. So that's all I got.
And you know, and I'm so glad that she shared this with us, Pastor Todd Urey, because she can help to walk us through this. My doctor told me at the beginning of this a couple of years ago. She said, "Look, take this to the bank. You're going to get it. I said, She said, no, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. But you're going to have to make sure that you are strong enough to survive it. What I want you to do is to get your immune system together. This is what my Dr. Langdon said to me. She said, "You've got to do that, and that is how you can do this." And this is before the advent of these vaccines, which we now know mitigate hospitalization. They don't prevent transmission. They don't prevent contracting this, but they do prevent hospitalization in most cases, although increasingly we're seeing that, there's just a lot that we need to do. Dr. Deborah Holden, we've got Dr. Shanina Knighton with us, but first of all, how are you doing?
Well, good morning. I'm doing a lot better. I got my energy. Many of the symptoms have subsided. So now it's funny when you become a consumer of the very things that you've been, suggesting for others. So my last step, the recommendation is you stay in isolation either from 10 days from when you were a known case or 14 days from when you had your known exposure. So either way, I'm in my room until Saturday.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
I'm in my bedroom because so my daughter also has COVID.
Okay.
My oldest daughter, India's mom, has COVID, and she's doing well too. We have the same symptoms, which I do want to give people a bit of a heads up, right? Like, I actually had to Google it myself because my big symptom was a sore throat and a headache. And I said, is a sore throat a COVID? I haven't really heard too many people talk about that. The headache one, I've heard a lot of people talk about, especially in kids. People talk about feeling a headache behind their eyes. So those were my early symptoms. And then fatigue. If I was sitting down or laying down, I was fine. But if I stood up and washed the dishes, this is like post-Thanksgiving, the kids cleaned up the kitchen, but they didn't clean the kitchen. So I said, let me clean this kitchen. And I was exhausted just standing up for 20 minutes. I was exhausted. So those symptoms have mainly subsided. So what's next for me is I will go and get a COVID test on Friday. And if that test is negative, then I'll be, back to being able to be in the house and get my grandbaby back because we did send her away, and I would be happy to answer any questions people have about that. That's a really tough one, what to do when you have somebody who is vulnerable or young and you have an outbreak in the house. Do you send the people away? Do you send the people who are vulnerable away? Do you send the sick people away? And for how long? I had to sort of weigh that out myself. But I'll go get a COVID test on Friday. Hopefully that will be negative. And then I can go get my baby back and get back to doing what I do.
Why do you think that you had that you didn't need to be hospitalized? Do you think it was the vaccine? Is the vaccine and lifestyle? What is it?
Hard questions to answer. Anything I would say is really my, sort of inferences that I might draw from my own experience, but I will never be able to say with certainty. And I by no means want to pretend that there's anything, people joke and say, oh, I got that Wakanda blood. And all of that is really great, but I know some people who were otherwise healthy who really struggled with COVID. People who were runners, never smoked in their life, clean eating, who ended up hospitalized. I know one guy who died. So I can't say with certainty. What I can say is the same advice I have been giving people, I have been taking myself. So doing what I can to boost my immune system, eating a high nutrient-dense diet, exercising for 30 minutes every day. I've been telling people just move your arms and legs 30 minutes every day. Try to get that heart rate up. And my big joke in my house, and I haven't done it in about a month, is I love to mop like no one's watching because it's a good workout. I have a big first floor. It's all wood, and mopping that floor is one heck of a workout. And I put the music on, and I really mop it like like I was on a dance competition. So I've been doing that. I have my own supplements that I take, and so and I'm vaccinated. So I think I was in the best possible case that one could be in if you were going to contract COVID. What I'm really curious about, though, is they are now starting to amp up the genomic sequencing of COVID. So the way that works is when you have a positive case, states are now, many of them, I know in Michigan we are increasing the number of those tests that they then will do genomic sequencing on, so you can understand exactly what strain of COVID you had, because that's also probably and likely a factor, what strain of COVID you get. Delta is the dominant strain in the U.S. and has been for many, many months. So some ridiculously high number, like 98% of all of the COVID cases in the past several months have been Delta. But we don't know. That's evolving. So we don't know what strains. We've heard about Omicron, and now it's been detected in the U.S. It's been here, but we just detected it finally. And so we'll have to see. We'll have to keep doing that work, and see how the virus mutates and what those predominant strains are and what symptoms come with those more dominant strains, and whether or not they cause more or less illness or more or less hospitalization.
Were you presented the option of therapeutics?
No, actually, there was no link between my tests. There was no recommendations provided to me. I took a rapid test, and I took, which is also called an antigen test. And think of it like this. There's two main tests.
Hold on. Hold that thought. Hold that thought, because I want to talk about that on the other side. But wow. We're talking with Dr. Deborah Holden. Dr. Shanita Knighton is on deck with us. We're going to be quizzing her about her COVID-19 positive diagnosis. Praise God. She's doing so well. We're so blessed. And we're talking about what we can do to follow her example so that, should we get it, we can come out of this victorious ourselves. And it can be done. Back in just a moment on the Santita Jackson Show. Dr. Deb?
Yes, ma'am.
You made me take my eye off the ball. I'm like, what?
All the time.
Yeah, I'm like a fiend about the time.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you're doing well, Dr. Shanita Knighton.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. Can't complain.
All right, now God is good. God is good. God is
Yeah.
good.
All the time.
God is good. God is good. God is good. So here we are. Oh my goodness. And it's so funny, Dr. Deb, I have over the past, told you, a couple of weeks, I've had 4 friends who've tested positive. I haven't seen any of them, but a couple of them have been out of the country, and a couple of them, well, they're not in Chicago, but they're very, very dear friends, and they've all had the same experience that you've had. A couple of years ago, when this first emerged, everybody made the decision to live more healthfully, right? And a couple of these people are not vaccinated. A couple of them are. One of my friends who's not vaccinated, this hit her just as she was finishing her treatment for breast cancer, right? So she said, I got to get through this first. You know what I mean? She said, I've one crisis at a time. And so there was that. But all 4 of you have had a similar experience. Now, do you know, but you've all been walking, running, exercising, eating, healthfully, taking vitamins. Everyone has been very, very diligent and vigilant about that. Let me ask you this, though. Do you think is coming through this, I want to know, well, when we get on the other side, about refining the protocols for treatment. I just can't shake that Governor DeSantis has opened up monoclonal antibody treatments to the state of Florida. I can't shake the fact that Governor Abbott from Texas, thank you so much, Devin, thank you, and thank you for the fine job you're doing today. I cannot shake that he was given Regeneron just to make sure that he didn't get a wildly symptomatic version of COVID-19. It's just, it's got me feeling some kind of way, Dr. Deb, as we talk about equity. You've sensitized all of us to that. So stay right there. Stay right there. Ooh, everybody call us at 773. I know you all just wanted to know how she was doing. And so you can hear she sounds great. Praise the Lord. You've had a lot of people praying for you, girl.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really do.
Oh, we love you.
I really, really do.
We want you okay. You and Jordan.
10 seconds.
Stand by. We're coming up.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. At the top of the hour, we'll be talking about the Jussie Smallett case. Will he testify today? Will he not? Well, I want to know what your thoughts are. And we're going to be getting more and more details about the people who investigated him. Remember, this happened around the whole Laquan McDonald madness. When the CPD was under a lot of fire, we went from mistrusting the police to completely trusting the police. I want to know what you think about that. And there are no cameras in the courtroom. Ooh, but right now, one of our own has COVID-19. Dr. Deborah Holden, and she's been talking to us about her experience, and praise God, she is doing well. Dr. Knighton, I know you were gobsmacked when you heard that our beloved Dr. Deborah Holden had COVID-19, but you had been at a wedding. And, but what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to lock ourselves away first? You, Dr. Verholden, and then you, Dr. Knighton.
That's a tough one. So it's a real tough one, right? Because I'm telling people we have to learn to live with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we're quite there yet. We haven't quite even demonstrated that we can master the very basics of that front line of protection, good hand hygiene, masking indoors. It's unfortunate, even in Michigan, we've got the highest numbers we've had the entire pandemic, and we are in complete and total openness. Everything is open. When we had numbers that were a fraction of this earlier in the pandemic, we were on complete shutdown, and now our governor is just simply unwilling to do that, So it's a tough one. And I've said this, this is my truth. When I look back in hindsight, there were a couple things that I think could have happened that would have maybe made things better, but none of it is foolproof. So the bride should have required people to have a negative COVID test. I believe that. She should have required that. I thought that was the case, but it was on the honor system. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, it was actually some people in the medical field. It was a group of medical residents who were positive at the wedding. And that's a whole other thing about medical personnel not, being as rigorous with their prevention and falling prey to and falling in the trap of, well, I'm vaccinated. But so a group of vaccinated and boosted medical professionals brought this to the wedding. Now, here's what's really bad. The bride and the groom left the day after the wedding for St. Lucia for part one of this honeymoon. So they were going to honeymoon in St. Lucia for like 5 days, and then they were coming back to the States, and they were going to finish their honeymoon in New York. They had both tested positive, and they are now on a mandatory 14-day quarantine before they can come back into the United States. And who do you think has to pay for that? They do. They are financially responsible for that. The hotel the resort has a COVID wing where they put them, and it's got, they work with them and give them some reduction of cost because of the mandatory quarantine. But the cost is theirs to bear. So in hindsight, I think I would have done a better job of asking what the protocols were going to be in advance. And if I wasn't satisfied with it, I probably would have opted to not go in person.
Mm-hmm.
And instead buy a gift off the registry, send a card, like that. Or find out what the protocols were and maybe even ask the bride, hey, for the safety of myself and others, can you add this extra layer? I've talked to her since, and I asked her, I said, if I had asked you that, would you have considered it? She said, honestly, I would have, but nobody asked. She said, and I really thought what we had in place was sufficient, but it wasn't.
I recommended that for two
my
friends.
recommendation to people.
Dr. Deb, I recommended that for a friend who had a totally vaccinated party this summer, a barbecue. She said, don't worry about it. Everybody's vaccinated. I said, everybody is not. I said, you're assuming people are. Not to mention the fact that what I want to know is who's COVID-19 positive or not. Because I've just known so many people who've had it. And like you said, you were with medical professionals. I'm sorry, you were with medical professionals, and everybody was fully vaccinated, boosted, and boom. I mean, and I'm not blaming or shaming anyone. It's just you've been saying also, hey, everybody, we need to know our status.
Yeah. And the tests have some limitations, too. The test is going to give you your status as of a few days ago, and that's the reality of it. So if you get a rapid test, that rapid test is not, if you were exposed the day before, if you were exposed maybe even 2 days before, you just simply most likely won't have enough viral load for the rapid test to come back positive. As an example, when I went and took my rapid test, now at that point I had symptoms. So when I had the scratchy throat, just a pinch, a little teeny itch in my throat on Monday night, I said, oh, that's interesting. And then on Tuesday, I noticed as the day went on, the more I talked, the more my throat itched and scratched, just was sore. And I said, I think I'm going to go get a COVID test. By the time I had the thought, I had missed the community testing site. It was about 5:40, and the testing site closed at 6. So I went to Rite Aid. They don't offer the rapid test, and they said they were out of PCR tests for the day, but they would have more in at 10 a.m. I said, well, I'm going to go to the community testing site. Why? Because I can get a rapid test and I can get a PCR test all at the same time. So I went, my rapid test came back positive. So, that's a wrap. If your rapid test is positive, you're positive. The likelihood of a false positive on those is very, 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 very low, as long as the test is done properly and no cross-contamination, all that. And then my daughter went the next day and got a rapid test because she started to have that little teeny itch in her throat. Her rapid test came back negative. And I said, well, we have to take that with a grain of salt because you might not have enough viral load yet. So you're going to have to get retested in like maybe 2 days. But she got the rapid test and the PCR test. Well, of course, her symptoms progressed. She had the exact same symptoms as me. And then she said, I'm not going to go back and get the rapid test because I don't want to expose anybody. I'm going to just act as if I have COVID and wait for my PCR test results to come back. PCR test results came back, and those were positive. So we just, she sort of erred on the side of caution to keep herself and others out of harm's way. And she said, I'll just act as if I have COVID. And that was a smart way to do it. So the PCR, the rapid tests, they're good, but they're their best when you're about at least 3 to 4 days from your exposure. And so you got to think, you've got then those 3 or 4 days where you could be infecting others. The PCR tests, which are tested for what's inside the viral molecule, they are more sensitive. They will identify a case earlier. The problem is, for a lot of those, it takes a day or two for the results to come back. So it's like 6 on one hand, half dozen on the other. You take a rapid test, you kind of need to be a few days in, or maybe even have some symptoms before it will correctly identify you as a case. You take a PCR test, it will identify you soon, but it takes a couple days sometimes for the results to come back. But can you get there's still this dead space, right?
Absolutely.
If I showed up to the wedding with a negative test, those people might have tested negative on Friday. They might have tested negative on Friday because they were asymptomatic on Saturday while they were shedding virus and getting us all sick. But then on Sunday, they started having symptoms, and on Monday, they all tested positive.
Well,
so I'm not sure. For all I know, they did have a negative test. So that's why I'm trying to say, even the tools that we have are not perfect. We can do better, but none of it really is perfect, which is why, like, here comes my same old song, right? I feel like the guy that's got the guitar sitting on the corner and only know one song. I only got one song for this, which is prevention. People just got to continue to wash their hands. They've got to mask up. They've got to avoid those large events, especially large indoor events where people aren't masked. There's just no way around that. And as I think back and reflect on my own experience, the second I took that mask off in that reception that was not very well spaced out, that was not really people distance, they, I think, went from used a 10-top table, and there were 8 of us at a 10-top. So we were still pretty close to one another. The second I took that mask off, I said, even just to eat or to have my toast, I said, I'm willing to have whatever anybody around this table might have. Whatever you got, I'm willing to have it too.
Well, you know.
And in hindsight, I wouldn't have done that. In hindsight, I probably would have come into the reception, got the lay of it, and I did. I left early. The reception was from 5:30 to 11:30. And I was only there for about 2 hours because I said, it's just too many people. And when people really started dancing and sweating and hooping and hollering, I said, oh, I definitely got to go. But I made that decision a little too late. It was too late.
Dr. Knighton, this is real life. I mean, this is how we're living, Dr. Knighton. It's a wedding reception. These are people who are very responsible, who are medical professionals, who are vaccinated, if you will, who are boosted, who have that layer of protection, but who knows how they eat? Who knows if they exercise? I mean, who knows? I mean, there's just so many factors here, it seems. What do you see here?
Well, for one, I think that's the problem, is that we make false assumptions that everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing because of a title, and that is not necessarily the truth. We also have to remember that here it is, we are at December 6th of 2021. The pandemic hit havoc and I would say gained attention February 29th of 2020. So at this point, with all of the measures that have been put in place, people re-emphasize on the best practices that they should be taking. You're looking at individuals that are fatigued. They're fatigued in their individual care settings, and they're also fatigued to the point that when they actually get some sort of sense of normalcy, sometimes those best practices go out of the window. You also have situations of where them being in an outside setting and feeling like, hey, I can let my guard down. There's also that piece, too, like in healthcare, if you work all the time around conditions such as, MRSA, which is a staph infection that a lot of people can actually be carriers for, even healthcare personnel, then you tend to let your guard down and say, oh, well, everybody's going to have some form of it anyway or some strain. And so in this particular instance, when we assume that healthcare workers know infection prevention, that is why they have people like me, infection preventionists, inside of hospital settings. It's because we are the policymakers. We are the reinforcers of infection prevention practices when we know that there are at times that healthcare workers are the lowest compliers. They forget because they're in the midst of their job. Some of them forget because they just don't think it should be a part of their best practice. However, the science shows that hand hygiene can decrease the risk of infections for patients and for individuals and from spreading them. We also know that, using proper PPE in the hospital also does the same exact thing. And to Dr. Deb's point in regards to testing, making sure that individuals are safe. That's another factor that's not taken into account. People are dancing, they're singing. So, was there any prophylactic measure when we're talking about mouthwash or something like that made sure that people wasn't going to be spreading their droplets in their mouth from their mouths if they wasn't going to have masks on? We also are saying that we are making assumptions in the midst of alcohol. Weddings are celebrations. We are celebrating the joining of two people. So if we assume, that we want to be safe, then it's sad. It's going to kind of taint the party for some people that believe that they need spirits and wine to be able to do so. But the thing is maybe that shouldn't have been offered there as well. So I just look at different factors that kind of go into it. And just like I'll tell anyone and they'll say, oh, well, there's no risk. There's no guarantee that I won't get COVID because of the vaccine. There's no guarantee that I won't get it if I'm washing my hands. There's no guarantee I won't get it if I'm wearing a mask. I tell them it's also the same thing if you got on a condom and you try not to have a baby. If it breaks, guess what? There's a probability that you got a baby. If you don't put on your seatbelt, guess what? There's a possibility if you get in a car accident, you're not going to make it. So it's these are all risk-lowering measures, and I think the problem is we have to stop getting to the point of where we living in these absolutes of, oh, well, if it don't matter about this because if this ain't going to protect me 100%. But I'll tell anybody, if you can decrease the chances of you having harmful issues, whether even for example, when I'm stressed out and I know that I got a lot of work to do, I cut sugar out of my diet. If I know already that stress is going to lower my immune system, but I know that exercise can help, but I know that sugar can lower my immune system, I eliminate sugar. You're not about to catch me out drinking no alcohol. You ain't about to catch me with a bottle of wine talking about I need to relax if I'm stressed, because I know that that's going to lower my immune system. So it's if I know that these things are risk-lowering measures, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing risk-lowering measures to make sure that I'm putting myself in the best position that should any of us become unfortunate to end up in a situation where we had COVID. Because I'll be honest, we all got situations where somebody will walk into our house, a kid, because I actually had a situation where one of my relatives brought their sick kid over. And I'm like, hold on. That's not what we do. And out of all people, I'm the worst person to do that with because you ain't going to never live it down. And now I got to put this little boy up on the scrutiny because I'm having a COVID test my nephew. I'm like, we about to go do this kid right now. I got to do that because it's his parent couldn't be responsible enough to know that you should not be bringing a sick kid over somebody's house, even if you want to go to your event. So it's just kind of just really, this is a situation where it's risk lowering. And so we cannot make assumptions that anybody know what it is that we know. And so I don't. So I had to reiterate, to my sister, don't bring him over my house no more sick. Don't you come over my house sick. I don't care if it's not COVID, because they'll say real quick, people be like, well, he got a cold, but it ain't COVID. I don't want your cold.
How about that?
I don't want to be sick.
Wait.
I don't want to be sick at all.
How about
don't
that?
Tell me,
I don't want your flu.
It ain't COVID.
I don't want.
Yeah, I don't
want any of it.
I don't want your germs at all. So don't tell me it ain't COVID. This is not oh well, I give you an STD, but it ain't AIDS. No, I don't want any of it. Keep it to yourself. So I think we got to do a better job about reiterating to people that illness is illness and you don't want their illness. And then when people laugh, but this is why I got protocols walking into my house. Because if you don't have that honor system or consciously you don't know to tell me these things, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can to protect myself. Should you leave later on and you telling me that you got something, then at least I can find some comfort knowing that I made you do everything to protect yourself and protect me too. Protect you from spreading it and protecting me from getting it.
Whew. Dr. Deb, Dave wants to know, what do you credit for your survival from COVID? Which is a survivable. It's survivable, everybody. I think we need to establish that. That's one of the things that we have, the fear-mongering has not helped us. But he wants to know, is it the vaccine? Is it prayer, therapeutics, healthy foods, vitamins, or a combination of them, or something else?
I think it's probably all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I literally know I'm the healthiest prior to contracting COVID. I had been the healthiest I had been during the pandemic on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I am vaccinated. I was not boosted, but I am vaccinated. I don't have any other pre-existing health conditions. I did have all of the creature comforts, and I mean, I got access to the best. Dr. Knighton immediately laid down for me what I should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I had my cool mist humidifier going. She gave me some advice on how to maximize that. I did everything that I knew to do. And, you know, part of me just feels like it's also just grace. Because like I said, I know people who just weren't as lucky, and I don't want to diminish or you know, in any way, you know, indict those people, because, you know, I know there are a lot of people who are doing very similar stuff and have had different outcomes. You know, some of it is we just don't know why this virus seems to be so hard on some and not on others. But I did do everything that I knew to do, and I feel good about that.
I am around any number of vaccinated people now who refuse to mask, Dr. Deb. I mean, it's just, you get in a car with them, they don't want to put on the mask. They're not going to do it. You get into a living space with them. They're done. I mean, and there is absolute resistance to that. What do you say to that now?
I wouldn't personally be willing to be around somebody who was willing to mask. I find it difficult enough going into public spaces. And mind you, where I am here in Michigan, like I said, all those mandates are gone. So people aren't required. You know, some individual stores have requirements, or, you know, a particular place may have a requirement, but the state mask mandate is gone. And so I can't be around those folks. You know, and what's so interesting is it looks like once you've been infected, you know, you get this period of immunity, right? And they say the best immunity is for the people who have been infected and vaccinated. But that doesn't mean you can't still be a spreader. So even though I'm recovering, when I come out of isolation, I still have to wear my mask. And the mask is to protect you. So I will still wear a mask because that will be to protect you. Because I could actually still breathe COVID in and out. Now, it might not proliferate because I've got the whole full immune response now. At the cellular level, I got it in my throat and my nose, you know, all of that. But I would hate to be the person who breathed it in and out on somebody. So I will still wear my mask. So, you know, I feel like, you know, people have their rights to do what makes sense for them. But if your rights infringe on mine, then we have a problem. And people who refuse to wear a mask are infringing upon my rights. And I'm not okay with that. So I want to be around people who are, when we're indoors, who are masked. And I want to be around people who, you know, take this thing serious. They're not terrorized by it. They're not, you know, I don't think it has to completely dominate every aspect of your life. But this notion that Dr. Knighton brings up around, you know, if we could just get some of these practices more mindfully baked in for folks, that's really, I think, going to be a big part of what moves us forward. You know, people really starting to internalize these prevention protocols. We just have to internalize it. You know, like when you get in the car, it's mindless for you now. And most people have a protocol, and they do it the same way every time. So I get in the car, I put on my seatbelt, I adjust the mirror, and then I start the car. That's mine. Like I'm literally, my arms and legs are doing it right now. I'm just pretending. I got in the car, I get in, I put my seatbelt on, I hit the button, I adjust the mirror like that. I don't even have to think about that routine anymore. But I remember when I was a new driver, I did. And I remember getting into different cars and forgetting to adjust the mirrors. I might adjust the rear view mirror, but I wouldn't adjust the left and the right side mirrors. And as a seasoned driver, you just do that every time. Even when you're in your own car that is set for you, it's just like routine. That's what we sort of need to have around infection prevention, I think. Just what's your normal routine? What would it take for people to just be more mindful about touching their face and how much they interact with their phone when they're out and about or when they're at the airport, and then how they will go from touching things to touching their phone to touching their face and, all of these other things. So I think I really like this notion, and I hope that we continue as we, stay on this push for the vaccine, that we also continue to push for good prevention practices, both not just in the care settings, but out in communities, empowering people with what they need so this becomes second nature to them as we figure out this new era of living with this disease.
Swiss cheese, everybody. Remember, we need different layers of protection. You got to take care of yourself, and and of course, Daryl, I think Joyce, you said please don't leave out physical distancing. I mean, it's all of that. But as Dr. Deborah Holden and Dr. Knighton have told us, we've got to figure out how to live with this pandemic because now, well, with COVID-19, because now COVID-19 is, or COVID is endemic. It is. It's with us. So what are we going to do? We thank God for the grace and the space that has allowed you to have your health restored, your health and Jordan's health. We just thank God for that. We thank God for that. And I'm so glad that you're walking out of this and walking through this situation, not out of it, but through it, more determined than ever to heal people and to create. You're mindful of the fact that you are very blessed, and privileged. That having been said, you want to extend that privilege to everybody else, and that is what makes us love you even more. And love you, Dr. Knighton. Everybody's saying you don't mess with Dr. Knighton. Come into her house sniffling. You gonna get that, she's gonna grab you by that throat and push you up against that wall and do that swab. Love it. Everybody, let's talk about the Jussie Smollett case. Will he testify today? Will he not? And do you know really so many of the facts that happened? Do you know that he never said that somebody came at him with a red MAGA hat? Do you know about the police officers who did the investigating? Do you know there is so much? And then there are no cameras in the courtroom. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Dr. Deb?
Oh, I didn't know there were no cameras in the courtroom.
None. And if you hear...
We got this O.J. Simpson case. We got spoiled.
Oh, wait a minute. I mean, and this is...
how that happened. We want to see.
Well, you need to, because remember, it was last week that the judge who has been hostile, even the reporters, they say that he makes faces and all of this at the defense, that he became so nasty. One of the defense attorneys, and Jussie has a completely black defense team. This woman she had asked for sidebar. Apparently, she charged him. She said he lunged at me. And she was reduced to tears in the courtroom. She said he physically lunged at me. And I said, whoa. Yeah. Oh, yeah, but there are no cameras. But I believe her. As a woman, we deal with sexism. We deal with misogyny. And she is a black woman. She's not trying to break down crying in a courtroom. You don't have that kind of... Y'all, you don't have that kind of space as a black woman. I'm saying this to all my morning stars. Black, white, brown, yellow, red. We ain't gonna shed no tears. Not a black woman. No.
In the car, maybe. We might in the car.
No, and with each other.
Right?
No, with each other. I'm gonna call you mad, crying, all that. But you know what? While I'm with you, baby, I'm ready to fight. Oh, yes. Yes, and I am nonviolent, everybody. But black women don't play that because we don't have that space. And you know what? And white women who really get it, they know they don't have that space either. As a woman, as anyone born on the downside of advantage, living on the downside of advantage, you don't have that kind of space. So for her to turn in that courtroom in a case this high profile.
And Shelley Stanley through.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what you all want to listen to? Because Shelley Stanley, I first came across her investigative work in Counterpunch. What she is on her way to court today to see what happens, and I can't wait to hear for her to report back what she has seen. Mm-hmm. But she gave the best reporting. I mean, it just blew my mind, the facts that she uncovered in this case. I mean, because corruption is rife in our police forces. Unfortunately, you have a lot of great police officers. We're not talking about the individuals. We're talking about the system. So, Dr. Knighton and Dr. Holden, so you can get your daily fill of the good news. Here we have, of course, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, and we've got Chelly Stanley, brilliant investigative journalist, who is. I'm going to let you go whenever you say you need to run. Chelly, go. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Santita. I actually can stay the whole time. Things changed a little bit.
So no, whatever. Like I said, whatever it is that you need to do, I just want you to get out as much of this information as you can, because as CK was saying last week, it's like the things that she was sharing, Doctors Knight and for Holden. You were like, I didn't know any of this, which completely changes, or should, if you were disinclined to believe Jussie Smollett, it would change your mind. If you were hedging your bets, it would change your mind. If you believe in his innocence, you'll say, now, I knew there was something fishy.
Wow, that is so crazy, because
you gotta hear it.
Because you can't get your it's like your character, and that be the thing about these systems, like they'll lie on you, or something that happened, and I don't have all the details, but I just feel like the consequence, like once damage is already done and that imagery is kind of put in people's head, trying to undo that and give people their character back is not something that I feel like our country does good, or the media does good after they've already torn somebody down or badgered their name. And so that's the unfortunate piece in regards to any evidence that might come out. It's like so much damage has been done. Like, I'm even thinking about his presence on the TV show. Everybody used to watch Empire and feel like Empire was canceled because of that. Mm-hmm. So it's just going to be interesting just to see how things come out. And, I would say maybe careers ruined, and just like imagery of people as a result of something that maybe thought that's going to probably be different than how the media told it to us.
Absolutely. But you know what? God always has a ram in the bush. Hallelujah. Oh, yes. Man's rejection can be God's protection.
The other thing is, sorry.
No, go on. I just think that there's something even bigger for Jussie to do. And we just have to hold on. But Chelly, go on, because we have like a minute before we come back up.
I was going to say, my hope is that people will be personally offended that CPD lied to all of us, outright lied. And, because the initial reaction that the public had was that they totally were compassionate in general. They supported Jussie, and there was an outpouring of disgust, and people wanted the country to change. And then that was all thwarted by basically this narrative of CPD, which was a complete lie. So I hope that once people realize what happened, that they will be personally offended.
Well, no, that's why you're here to tell it. That's why you're here to tell it.
Change the country.
You're here to tell it.
Yeah.
That's what you're here to tell. Yeah. Because no one has given us.
Are we on break right now?
Mm-hmm, but we're on Facebook Live. But I've talked about this. Trust me.
60 seconds.
They have lied. They have lied. Come on. This is the same CPD that killed Fred Hampton. I mean, really? And they sent someone to kill my dad, too. I mean, I remember that. Howard Pointer talked about it. It was something called the Red Squad. He had laid out a whole template of our house. He used to drive my father. He used to pick us up from school. And it was discovered that he was sent to kill him. I mean, come on. Mm. Oh, yeah. And he was our Uncle Howard. And remained so throughout his life, because my father forgave him. And he was remorseful. But this is what happens. Because my father's from the Fred Hampton generation. He's about one of the few who survived. It's terrible. It's terrible what they do. And these folks lie. And they lie on you. They scandalize your name.
10 seconds.
Shame, shame, shame. Stand by, everybody.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, Monday, December 6th, 2021. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from Wcpt 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want to hear your voices today. What do you think about the Jussie Smollett case? Will he testify today? Will he not? That's one of the headlines today. That is the question. But the deeper question is, what really happened here? And who did the investigating? really, I think we need to know all of those pieces, don't you? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. And yes, Michael Ann, the defense lawyer alleges she charged the judge with lunging at her. She had a very sharp line of question that was respectfully delivered, but she said he physically lunged at her, and she was reduced to tears in the courtroom. He said, I've never seen anything like this. And he has been making faces, and this is what the corporate media have been reporting. He has been very hostile to the defense. So we're going to talk about this with Shelley Stanley, brilliant investigative reporter, and attorney C.K. Hoffler. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to have attorney Fania Davis, a family friend, noted civil rights attorney, sister of Angela Davis, by the way, Dr. Angela Davis. Oh, yes. So we can't wait to talk about this. And let's get some of these headlines out the way so we can get right to this. Chicago will have a high of 35 degrees, cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 15 degrees, cloudy. The NFL, well, it seems like Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Chicago, we had a tough time yesterday. The Bears, well, they fell to the Cardinals. The Cardinals 33, the Bears 22, and the Lions 29, the Vikings 27, but they dedicated the game. Of course, to those students killed at the Oxford High School. God bless them all. God bless them all. In the NBA tonight, Atlanta will be playing the Timberwolves, and the Nuggets will be visiting the Bulls here in Chicago. And in the NHL, Chicago was triumphant over the New York Islanders 3-2. Robert Dole, one of the last great statesmen of the U.S. Senate, longtime GOP leader, 1996 Republican nominee, World War II veteran, made his transition at the age of 98. What a great life he led. He, of course, is a product of a time when you had people in the U.S. Senate who were statesmen, and he was one of those persons. Persons who reached across the aisle, he was one of those persons. Someone who embraced everybody and who sought out solutions that would move the country forward. He did do that. May God bless him and his wife, Elizabeth Dole, who was also one of the women who has broken the glass ceiling for women in politics, and we thank God for this wonderful couple and their family today, sending them many, many prayers. The parents of Ethan Crumbley, James and Jennifer Crumbley, were charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, which were brought forth as prosecutors alleged that these parents provided unrestricted access to the gun their son is accused of using. Indeed, they bought the gun for their son as an early Christmas present the day after Thanksgiving, everybody. And when he was found to be searching for ammunition, young Ethan, of course, drew the attention of teachers, and the mother laughed in a text, laugh out loud, you have to not get caught the next time. Wow, everybody. Indeed, they were caught 40 miles from home in Detroit. What's interesting about that, law enforcement are speculating that perhaps they were going to escape to Canada, which there's a bridge between Detroit and Windsor, Canada. Think about that, everybody. COVID-19 cases are up in the United States in 17 states, but Dr. Fauci says, watch it now, everybody. Don't worry too much, because it does not look at this time like there's a great deal of severity to this, which corroborates what South African Medical Association have been saying about Omicron. The most dominant strain of the United States is still the Delta variant. Ilhan Omar, great congresswoman from Minneapolis, St. Paul, or from Minneapolis, is calling Kevin McCarthy, the minority leader, a liar and a coward. She said, this is who they are, and we have to be able to stand up to them, and we have to be able to push them to reckon with the fact that their party right now is normalizing anti-Muslim bigotry. She castigated the House Minority Leader on Sunday morning, calling the Republican leader a liar and a coward because he refuses to discipline Representative Lauren Boebert, a freshman Republican from Colorado, who has been on an anti-Muslim diatribe forever. So let's get right to it, everybody. The Jussie Smollett case. What do you think about it? I tell you what, whatever you think about it, I don't know if you really know what is really going on in this case. I really don't think you know. There's so much that I found out from the investigative reporting of Shelley Stanley, brilliant investigative reporter. And of course, attorney C.K. Hoffler is with us. And Doctors Knighton and Hoffler wanted to stay and listen because I said, you don't want to miss this, particularly they're going into court today, the prosecution has rested their case. They have rested their case, rather. And now the speculation is whether Jussie will testify today. We don't know, but we do know this. There are no cameras in the courtroom, so we don't see what the defense attorney alleged that the judge did last week. That is, physically lunged at her, physically came at her. We have not seen his facial expressions, which apparently have been directed toward the defense, and he has been very biased against the defense. There's a lot going on. So let's start with some basic facts in this case. Chelly Stanley, and welcome to the show, Chelly Stanley and attorney C.K. Hoffler. But I mean, I was struck last week. Before I get to you, Chelly, just very, very quickly, attorney C.K. Hoffler.
She just dropped. I'm trying to get her back.
We'll get her back. Let me go right to you then. Chelly Stanley, what don't help to get the narrative right? I mean, because we've been presented a narrative. Where are we wrong? Where are we mistaken? Or where have we been misled?
Right. So the way we've been misled is that people believed the police unquestioningly in this case. They did not question the police for some reason. And, you know, I added up the allegations against the officers that are on Jussie's investigation. They have a combined 563 misconduct allegations that have been filed against them by the people of Chicago. And they have 16 lawsuits against them that the people of Chicago have paid to settle, totaling almost $7 million. And I can get into that in a little bit, but just to set the stage, you know, the judge has banned anyone from talking about this in the courtroom. The defense is not allowed to talk about these detectives' misconduct allegation backgrounds, even though the detectives themselves are accused of homophobia. One of them is accused of homophobia against a Black man, and several of them are accused of using racist hate speech themselves by the people of Chicago. So no one is allowed to talk about this in the courtroom, and the judge has also banned, as we know, cameras from the courtroom. So, you know, first I just want to set the stage with some of their stories. You know, there's a guy on the case that was on the investigation named Richard Chorak, and he, you know, taxpayers paid to settle a lawsuit against him in which he allegedly kicked a man lying in a fetal position with fellow officers for several minutes, causing the man severe spinal injuries. There's another detective, Detective Dole, who allegedly himself shot an innocent man in the stomach, lied about it, and then charged the man with drugs and assaulting an officer. And the man had to wear a colostomy bag and have several surgeries. You know, then there's Detective Cassidy, who is accused of using racist hate speech and attacking an innocent man and falsely charging him with drugs and assaulting an officer, which cost the city $50,000 to settle. He's also accused in another misconduct lawsuit of attacking a woman, falsely arresting her, and subjecting her and her family member to many, many abuses during their arrest. There's also Detective Facine, who was one of the first detectives who went to see Jussie after the initial report was made by his friend. He didn't even want to call the police, but his friend called the police. And this man arrested the victim of a violent attack. Detective Facine arrested the victim of a violent attack and charged him, despite they must have been aware that they were arresting the wrong person, because basically they show up to this guy's house whose fiance had called the police. The man was still being actively attacked in front of them by a neighbor with a knife, and they arrested the guy who was being attacked, even though his hand was bleeding, and charged him with something. So that's, you know, the detective who showed up pretty quickly in the beginning. So, you know, that's just to set the stage of who these detectives are. These are people who have almost never at all been held accountable in any way for any of the allegations that have been made against them, and are pretty much have been operating with impunity and of course, there's a lot behind that, as Santita was saying, like the system, has been behind them, despite the fact that they're abusing the people of Chicago, allegedly. So.
Mm-hmm. No, I was going to ask you, but what about these red hats, the MAGA hats?
Yes, I was going to get right into that. So then, there's a detective, as everyone knows, the kind of the proof that CPD leaked to the media to say that this was the Osendario brothers was a video of the Osendario brothers buying supposed attack materials like face masks and red hats. And that is quite astounding because actually on the initial police report, it doesn't say anything about red hats. And, during the time that this attack happened, I was just looking this up, and there was a huge, cultural struggle at that time about the meaning of red hats. Like, people were saying things like red hats, white hoods, and the right was really upset about it, and there was this big struggle. So in Jesse's case, he actually did not report that there were red hats, and the initial police report doesn't say anything about red hats. So obviously it probably would have, given the context of this case. So it came out somehow on social media, and then the media picked it up that there were supposedly red hats. And Jesse actually tried to correct this several times. He talked to Detective Murray, which is written in the police report. And I've written an article about this. You can check it out. It's called Jesse Smallett and the MAGA Hat That Never Was. And that shows all the page numbers from the police report, so you can look it up yourself. But basically the day after the attack, he told Detective Murray, who she's herself been formally accused of using homophobic hate speech against a black man, he told her that he, quote, never said anything about a MAGA hat. And then also on, the interview that he did on ABC, he said on there that he never said anything about a MAGA hat. He said, I never said that. I didn't need to add anything like that. They called me I don't think I can say the word.
No,
but
don't say
the
it.
F word against,
Yeah. The pejorative against homosexuals, absolutely, homosexual men.
Yeah, and against black people, right? So that's what he said on his interview. He said, I did not say that. But as we know, CPD showed everybody a video of the brothers buying a red hat, right? And they said, this is proof. And in fact, on the media, they kept saying, look at this red hat. They're buying a red hat. It was like the big supposed smoking gun. And the very interesting thing about this is the detective who says that he found this video is actually Detective Richard Hagan, who was sued by Laquan McDonald's family for covering up, Officer Van Dyke murdering Laquan with 16 shots. So that's, the city of Chicago paid $5 million for this lawsuit. And Detective Hagan, when you read the report, it's quite astounding because he says, it baffles the mind. He says that he and his colleague decided to search beauty stores, which I don't know how they narrowed that down, but beauty stores, to see which one sold red hats in Chicago. And they found that only one did. So they went to the store, and Detective Hagan writes that, quote, at the suggestion of Detective Paragas, Detective Hagan checked the video at around 10 a.m. And that's how they found this video, supposedly. So they just lucked upon the exact time and the right store by choosing to go to beauty stores in Chicago. And it's very clear in their reports that the brothers did not tell them what store they went to. That would be one thing, but they didn't. They decided to look and see which beauty store, and then they went to the store. So, his report basically focuses on the red hat. He talks about how they walked around the aisle with the red baseball cap, and they walked to the counter, and they put the red hat on the counter. The brothers were actually under CPD's in CPD's custody at this time, though it's a little bit strange why they were, because the 48 hours had ended. In the 47th hour, the brothers, went along with CPD's story and became CPD's star witnesses.
Explain the significance of the 48-hour hold. Explain that.
Okay. Yeah. So they can only hold you legally for 48 hours before charging you or releasing you. And, so often, the police can put a lot of pressure on you to do what they want during that 47 hours because you have charges yourself that are looming over you. And so in the 47th hour, after the brothers refused to eat the entire time they were in custody, which is written in the police report, and you can see that in another article I wrote that's called Jussie Smollett, the Chicago Police Department, and the MAGA hat that never was, that's on the Black Agenda Report website. But they refused to eat. The police did various misconduct during it, which I mentioned last time. And then in the 47th hour, the brothers said that they did exactly what the police, alleged. And became their star witnesses and have no charges against them as a result. In fact, they're somehow portrayed by their lawyer as being a victim in this, which is astounding because they're the police witnesses. They're protected by the police. They're, the police, they're the whole police's case, but they're somehow the victims, according to their lawyer. In any case, after the 47th hour, the police did something very strange, which I don't know if this is done in Chicago. I don't think it's normal, but they took the brothers directly to a hotel and put them under 24-hour, this is quote from their own reports, 24-hour surveillance and security. And so they brothers could not leave. They didn't have their phones with them for much of the time, according to the police reports. They were stuck at this hotel under 24-hour surveillance and security. The police say that it was to protect the brothers from the media. But they were under this 24-hour surveillance and security for the next, 4 to 5 days until they were taken by CPD to testify at the grand jury. So, we wonder why, I have my own theories about why CPD would want to have such tight control over them before they went to the grand jury, maybe to make sure they would go and say what they said. So basically they were under CPD's security at the hotel and surveillance when Detective Hagan says that he found this red hat video. And it's funny because in the red hat video, you would think that CPD would have carefully checked their own records and seen what the guys were, wearing in their own reports, but they didn't do that. And so they just went along and found, they went along with the media. They're not careful. They're extremely sloppy in their reports from what I can see, because I don't think they're used to anyone looking at them very closely, but
there's that. Hold that thought. No, hold that thought, because you've given us a whole lot. We're speaking with Shelley Stanley, investigative reporter. I first encountered her work on the Jussie Smollett case, and she has a brilliant body of work about so much. But I first saw it on Counterpunch. And of course, I've been posting it on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Please go there. I've tweeted it out. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, did you know any of this? Have any of this information before? And is it relevant?
No, I didn't know any of this at all. It's relevant insofar as in a very limited way, a limited but important way. The Chicago Police Department technically is not on trial, but really is on trial for purposes of determining Jussie Smollett's innocence. So when I say it's not on trial, the case is not, the state versus the Chicago Police Department, but it really could and should be based on some of the information that we're receiving. And so I think the reason why I say it's very relevant, it's relevant to Jussie's innocence, it's relevant to the credibility of the star witnesses. So when you look at, in a criminal case or a civil case, when you look at witnesses, particularly when you have the star witnesses of the state, which in this case are the two brothers, you look at their credibility, you look at inconsistencies, you look at what the state has done, you look at the deal that's been cut for them, you look at all of those dynamics, their whereabouts, what happened, them being sequestered, not eating any food, all of those things add up to really circumstantial evidence that makes them non-reliable witnesses. Just think of what the case would be if you remove those two witnesses that claim to have been hired by Jesse Smallett to attack him. Without their testimony, or if the jurors think that they have absolutely no credibility, then that certainly will help Jesse's defense. That would confirm what we believe and are seeing now to be true, which is that the Chicago Police Department fabricated or had its own sinister reasons for wanting to nail Jesse Smallett, because it's got to be that. But if the Chicago Police Department is not on trial, a lot of the evidence isn't coming in. And that's I believe, some of the rulings by the judge. Again, I feel very disadvantaged because I don't have access to the courtroom. Sure. None of us really do. And so I feel disadvantaged in giving opinions about the case. I probably could give stronger opinions if I were sitting there or if I could see via video the testimony that's being given and all the dynamics in the courtroom. But from what I am seeing, we have an issue with the judicial temperament. The judge, much like in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, appears to be biased, very biased against Jesse Smallett, against the defense. We've got a judge who has and I talk about judicial temperament, even
I've got 20 seconds.
His tone, and all that. Jurors are very sensitive to those types of things, and it can impact the outcome of the case. So, Santita, to answer your question, no, I didn't know all of this isn't important. Yes, it is. Is it going to be relevant admissibility in court? To a limited degree. And I would say, unfortunately. So it's important to make sure that people know about this.
Shelley, are you leaving right now? Do you have to go at this moment?
No, I can stay.
Okay, stay right there. Want to get your thoughts, everybody. 773-763-9278, 773-763, WCPT. What you're hearing, is that relevant to the case today? I think that it is. I think that at the time that this happened, the Chicago Police Department, they were on trial. Why? Because we had just come through the horrific Laquan McDonald trial. And only one officer was convicted in that. The other 4 officers were acquitted. Remember that. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Shelley, that's great. Doctors Knighton and Holden, are you still there?
I'm here. I'm learning a lot. I'm just here listening. If you need the line, let me know.
No. I just wanted I wanted to know what you heard. I mean, what do you think about what you've been hearing?
And Santita, I want to come back on the 2 types of relevance.
Okay, please.
When you say something relevant, it's relevant to the case because it involves it circles or it's intertwined with Jesse Smollett's innocence. Relevance in the courtroom in a court of law in a case that the judge is going to rule on, because that's what the judge rules on all day. Relevance of testimony, relevance of information. I think it's limited based on the court's rulings.
Okay.
That's the problem. But is it relevant to what's happening? Yeah, it's relevant to Jesse's innocence. Is it relevant to the case based on the court's rulings? Limited, very limited. And so what we have to hope is that this jury reads through the lines and gets it. And in closing argument, you can argue all of the things that you want to argue, provided it's not excluded or prevented by motions in limine and all that. You can argue a lot of the circumstantial evidence, your theories, what you think, why. But it would be great, of course, and I don't know if Jesse's going to take the stand, but it would be great if somebody was able to speak to some of these things. Well, the police department's not going to speak to it, obviously, because it would be very incriminating for them. There was a whole grand jury investigation, people testified, et cetera, et cetera. So
Sending Chaparral and Attorney Davis through.
Related to the case who has first-hand knowledge, factual information who could testify about it. And the defense is going to start putting on its case. So there might be a way of getting the information in, and then it does become relevant in a court of law. So I just wanted to draw that distinction. Relevance overall to the case, yes. Relevant in the court of law, that's based on the judge's rulings. whether he's going to let it in or not.
And that's why cameras are so important in the courtroom, because we're dealing with the court of public opinion as well, whatever the outcome. Attorney Fania Davis, how are you?
I am well. I just flew in last night.
Bless your heart.
I'm a little bit still on California time, but I'm well. Good to hear your voice again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Of course, we've got Shelley Stanley on with us, brilliant investigative journalist who's been bringing out so many of the obscure facts of the case. Or should I say of the Chicago police, which is so important. And we've got attorney C.K. Hoffler. She is the immediate past president of the National Bar Association, and she's also the chair of Rainbow Push. And back in the gallery, we've got two of the most brilliant scientific minds in the world with us. Dr. Deborah Holden, who's the Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University School of Medicine. She comes out of Johns Hopkins, PhD. She just wanted to hear. Dr. Shanina Knighton, registered nurse, research clinical scholar at Case Western Reserve University, one of just a few thousand infection preventionists in the country, indeed the world. And they're just trying to learn about the case, and it is just stunning. So stand by. They're just listening.
10 seconds.
So stay right there. Well, I just want people to know. Because when you get that water cooler talk, I want you all to share this as well. Important.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Like and share on the Santita Jackson Show. Like and subscribe on the Santita Jackson Show channel on YouTube, and like and share on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. This is some information that really needs to get out, everybody. Of course, the podcast of this show will be on about an hour after the show is over at WCPT820.com/Santita. WCPT820. WCPT820.com/Santita. Before we go on to more about the details of the Jussie Smallett case, it's Christmas time, everybody. Oh, and I want my vittles from Celebrations by Us. Chapearl, what's going on, girlie?
Good morning, Santita, and thank you so much for allowing us to talk about our great Christmas specials that we have running right now on our Christmas cookies, as well as also our cakes and pies. So don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546. That's 708-526-4546. We're taking orders to December 17th, and we can not only do just your sweets, but we can also do your rib roast, your mac and cheese, your green beans, your greens, your mazzatoli, Cajun pasta, all of your cakes and all of your pies. So don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546 or reach us at celebrationsbyus.org or call us at 708-526-4546. Thank you so much, Santita.
Thank you, everybody, because I'm putting in my order. I sure did get my Thanksgiving vittles. Yes, I know I went to be with my family, but I wanted something for myself, and it was great. It's great, and I'm going to have some of her greens today for lunch. Yes. Everybody, let's talk about the Jussie Smallett case. I know you all are listening. I want to know what your thoughts are. 773-763-9278, 773-763. WCPT, as we bring on attorney Fania Davis, dear family friend of the Smallett family, but she is also a noted civil rights lawyer. She is also the sister of Dr. Angela Davis. I can't say enough about the Davis family and all that they mean to us. Of course, Dr. Davis and you and your parents, you all have done so much to lift up the country and to make us all much better. And I just thank God for you, Attorney Davis. I want, though, you to finish your point before we go to Dr. Davis. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, I know you're going to have to go, but I was asking you about, with all the information that Shelley Stanley's been presenting to us, how relevant it is. And, you're saying that there's a legal track, and then, you've got the court of public opinion and you've got the courtroom. Two different realms. Talk to us about relevance.
Absolutely.
So relevance, there are two ways of looking at it. Is this information relevant to Jesse Smallett and his defense? Absolutely. It's relevant because it just in general, like when we're sitting here talking in the court of public opinion, it sounds like these facts about the Chicago Police Department, those arresting officers, lies, the credibility of those two lead witnesses for the Chicago Police Department from the state. Yes, it is relevant. It's important to the story about what happened. But is it relevant in court? That is determined by the judge. The judge determines the relevancy of all evidence. And that's why you hear objections and the like when evidence is about to be introduced or when witnesses are about to say something or if they say something. And so while I think in hearing this, I'm astounded by some of this information that I think is relevant. I think the jury should hear it. The judge is the final arbiter of whether it's relevant and the jury is going to hear it and has made certain determinations that some of this information relative to the backgrounds of the arresting officers and other things, related things, are not coming in. The jury will not hear it and will not be able to consider that in this case. So I want to make sure we're clear on when we talk about relevance. Mm-hmm. Is it relevant? In general, the court of public opinion, what we think, what we're sensing, yes. Will the jury hear it as that jury of 12 that's going to decide on Jesse Smollett's fate? More than likely not. It's going to be very limited because of the judge's rulings unless he changes his rulings, which can happen.
Well, he banned this information from being presented in court.
Absolutely. But if a door is opened, it can still come in. But this judge is displaying, based on what I'm hearing, again, feels so paralyzed not seeing not being there in the courtroom, seeing any footage. But it appears that this judge is biased against Jesse Smallett. You know, we have to look at the judicial temperament, much like we did in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. That can play a very important role because jurors look, listen, and pay attention to what the judge is saying or not saying. The facial movements, their temperament, how they respect or don't respect or address the party, that becomes very, very important for a jury because they're looking at the judge as the person who controls the courtroom, as if you will, a god in the sense of the courtroom. I don't mean to be sacrilegious, but in the courtroom, it is the judge. The judge is all powerful, and that is something that we must understand. So when we have a judge whose judicial temperament is in question, that becomes dangerous.
It is in question. It is in question. Attorney Fania Davis. Whew. Yeah. What do you make of today? What should we expect today? And what have you seen thus far in this case?
Okay, I've not been in the courtroom either, as Attorney Hoppe hasn't. This will be my first day, but I am so looking forward to this day because the world will finally hear Jesse's story. We're going to have some, I would say, some pretty dramatic evidence, and I won't say who, but I'm really looking forward to today, and things will change drastically. That courtroom is going to be a different place after today.
Well, I'm hoping so, because it's really been troubling as we've been listening to Chenley Stanley, and we've been listening to her investigations into, the backgrounds of these officers who arrested him, who investigated him. It's been very, very disturbing, not just because I'm from Chicago and I get it, but, everybody gets it. That's why we've been looking forward to police reform with this George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, because we desperately need it. I think red, yellow, black, brown, and white, we all are looking for justice. We're all looking for that, because if we don't get justice, we certainly won't have liberty. What do you think? There are a lot of people who have doubts, right, not about the police, Attorney Davis, but about Jesse. How did that happen?
Okay, so really, Jesse is the victim here. Mm-hmm. He is a victim of a racist and homophobic hate crime, first of all. Secondly, he's victim of a racist, homophobic, and anti-activist legal frame-up. And thirdly, and this gets, I think, to the question that you're asking, he is a victim of a ruthless character assassination and disinformation campaign that's been carried out by the Chicago Police Department. That has hurt him deeply on multiple levels. It has injured his personal reputation, his career, and his soul. But let me say that he comes from a family like my family, like your family, that has always stood up for truth and justice. Even though he suffered, he is standing up to injustice. He could have easily caught the plea with a slap on the wrist and then moved on with his life. But he instead chose to show up for justice and truth. And he chose to be vindicated. And I think we're going to see some truth today come out in the courtroom that we haven't seen anywhere. It's and it's not out of character, as the wonderful Bella Bass said, who's a local activist. She said something like, I've never known Jesse to be a person who would fake a crime. But I know the Chicago Police Department to be one
all the time,
a department that fakes a crime, and that there's a real truth there. Gosh, what about Fred Hampton, Panther Fred Hampton, and Mark Clark, who were assassinated by the Chicago police in 1969?
But remember the first story that came out with that? The story was that Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were firing at the police. It was only G. Flint Taylor and his legal team went in and saw that all of the bullets were aimed at the apartment. You know, I went to the apartment when I was a little girl. Yeah. My father had to stay outside. But, our parents, they took us places. And, of course, we knew Fred Hampton and Bobby Rush, Congressman Rush, but he was Bobby Rush, wanted number one most wanted man in America at the time. I think you know something about that. He surrendered at our apartment. And so my parents had to put him in the back of a car, almost in a trunk, and take him to our Saturday morning meeting so he could surrender in public. So he wouldn't be killed. You understand how that goes better than most.
Oh, yes, indeed.
And so I'm just, with our history here, to see it, to me, it's been ruthless and it has been coordinated with corporate media.
Yes, indeed. And we have to remember that, as you suggested, CPD is very seasoned and experienced at cover-ups, at frame-ups, at fabricating charges. We see it, since, for decades we've seen this. The 100 black men or more who've been tortured and all the cover-up behind that, Laquan McDonald's a murder and cover-up. It's always a cover-up. It's a pattern and practice of all manner of abuse against black men, whether we're talking about character assassination here or actual physical assassination, as in the Fred Hampton, Mark Clark, and Laquan McDonald murder, and the torture of more than 100 black men. These were all followed by cover-ups. And in this case, they're showing, they're demonstrating their skill at fabricating and doctoring evidence and in manipulating reality for its own self-interest. This is their MO. And in Jesse's case, we see a cover-up and a frame-up, an elaborate cover-up of the actual hate crime, followed by an elaborate frame-up of a hate crime hoax. And yes, it's true the judge is not going to, he's already ruled that this information about the CPD's history of just massive crimes against humanity and specifically against black men will not come in. And I'm going to add, I don't want to, I'm building up for today, and I think I'm right in doing so. I think some really important and probative evidence and dramatic evidence is going to come out today on this subject of misconduct. The door will open. The door will open.
I'm waiting. I mean, because we just want justice, everybody. And let me just say this. There are some good police officers, but there is also rot in the system. And you need the rot rooted out. That's why we're bringing this up. Shelly, is that you? Oh, well, hold on. Let me go to Chris, because Chris has a question. And Shelly, I want you to speak to this. Chris, what's on your mind? Chris from Wheaton.
Good morning, Santita, and good morning, panel.
Good morning.
I just had to comment because the past few days, including the end of last week, have absolutely turned my head around in regard to this case. Because as a dedicated progressive and someone who fights for racial justice myself, I also fell into the trap of judging Jussie preemptively, and I think it was easy to do that in the beginning of this case. And I just wanted to thank you for bringing to light. This type of reporting has not come out. Like the detectives that were on the case. I mean, my mind has been blown by this. Like, and I feel foolish because even as someone who tries his best to see through police tomfoolery and whatnot, I'm just like ashamed of myself. So I think a lot of people should sort of like reflect on how we perceive this case because, you know, it was real easy to clown this dude. And maybe that was the case. I don't know what Justice Smallett was trying to do. But I literally, like, my jaw was on the floor listening to whose name I forget, but she was very awesome in her coverage of the police themselves who've been involved in the case and the procedures at which they were handled.
Shelley Stanley, who's here.
Yeah.
What changed your mind? What? Because you were open to the information, Chris. I will give you that. What happened in your thinking?
Well, the thing is, like, there's like a part of American culture where it's easy to judge black people and it's easy to judge gay black people. And it was the narrative around Justice Smallett right up the bat was a gay black actor was looking for attention. And that was regardless of how much knowledge we've had over like the Berg years and all the things that have gone on. I mean, like you said, Fred Hampton. I mean, the police are been lying like it's their job since 1850. So it's just amazing how much our own prejudice can get in the way of seeing something. And I guess it was when she started listing off all of the list of things that those
the misconduct, right?
Yeah, the misconduct charges and stuff. And it's just, and it's like, why am I surprised by that? Like, I know the history of the Chicago police, so it was just one of those things. I just wanted to honestly, just humbly thank you and your show because it really, like, I'm looking at this case with very new eyes right now. And I'm a little ashamed of myself if I'm being fully honest about it because I came in to prejudice that I shouldn't have had, and I'm a little ashamed about it.
No, don't be ashamed of yourself. This is the narrative that was shaped for you. So don't be ashamed of yourself. I'm just glad that you are grown and man enough to say it and, and just spread the word. Let me go to sending you much love, Chris. Thank you so much. Elliot from Palatine. Elliot, what's on your mind?
Hey, how's it going, Santita?
Good hearing your
Thank
voice.
you. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. So I guess without looking at the, Chicago police, which they don't have a good track record, I'm reading the paper and I see that Jesse Smollett's two friends are involved in this. And then he paid them money right after the incident. And then he's saying that it was because they were training him for some upcoming film. I mean, the thing just reeks of, corruption and of a staged incident. And I'm just an average Joe from Chicago, and I'm trying to see, what.
Well, stay right there.
Like an open and shut case.
Well, no, stay right there because I'd like for Shelley or Attorney Davis. Why don't you speak to him because Elliot has a worldview that a lot of people share. Shelley?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for that question, Elliot. I think that's been the part that has confused many people. And that is a tactic that police officers use. It's like you have your star witness that you use, again, to bolster your case, whether that person's telling the truth or not. So the way that we can see that there's something very wrong here is that, first of all, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, yes. Oh, you're getting feedback? Okay.
So Jesse reported a white man, right? He saw a white masked man. And there were two other witnesses who also saw a white man. And one of them gave the exact same description that Jesse did to the police immediately after the attack. There was an initial investigation that was quite thorough and good. It's written about in the police reports, and you can read the article that I mentioned called Jesse Smallett, the Chicago Police Department, and the Disappearing Video Footage Trick. And that has the page numbers from the police report, so you can read it yourself. But basically, there were two witnesses who told CPD within 3 days of the attack that there were white masked men at the scene. There was a white man with a rope. CPD saw this on video. They saw the men running away past a guard at the hotel who they interviewed, and the guard told them that the guy, was 6 feet tall, white, and masked. And CPD hid all this from the public. If you remember, immediately after the attack, they were like, wow, all these cameras, we've been looking in them and we can't find anything, and they kept giving us this narrative, like, did this really happen? We can't even find any evidence. Was this all just a complete, hoax and he just lied and all this? But they were lying. They found that evidence within 3 days of the attack and they hid it from us and the public. And then after doing that, they were able to concoct the story they wanted to tell us. So, you can see that by reading the police reports yourself, and, we'll see what happens at trial. But, the brothers were Jesse's friend. They went on stand and or at least acquaintances, I shouldn't call them friends, but they went on stand and they said exactly, the same story that the police said. And so, I think that's what has confused so many people. But one thing I want to say about that is, there's a whole system that we have in this country that's totally unregulated, where prosecutors and police coerce people to make statements in exchange for something, a kind of quid pro quo behind the scenes.
Well, wait a minute.
And
were they immigrants? I mean, did they have issues with their immigration status?
They're Nigerian American.
Okay. They're Nigerian American, so they didn't have immigration issues. I'm just checking. I'm just trying to peek under every rock.
But I was just going to say there's the USA did a study in 2012, and they said that in the past 5 years, 1 of every 8 person in federal prison had their prison sentences reduced in exchange for giving government investigators information. And as we know, there's no regulation of this. We don't know how they were asked to give information. We can't tell if the information they gave was right or not. They're obviously being given, something for giving this information, having their sentences reduced, and they're giving information about other people. So that's not regulated at all. There's so much abuse that you can imagine would happen in that kind of system against each other, against innocent people. And, I think that's a huge problem in this country that has to be addressed, that should not be happening. There should be complete oversight and regulation of that kind of deals made behind the scenes.
Well, before I get some closing thoughts from you, because I know you all are running to court today, Jewel has called from New York. Jewel, you had a question or questions for the guests? Very quickly, sweetie, because we're going to go out. We'll be out of here in about 4 minutes.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Santita. Yes, good morning.
My dear sister.
I was just surprised and shocked to hear all that information that wasn't put out initially. You understand? That's a terrible, brutal attack, and it sounds like a cover-up to me. It sounds like a cover-up to me. The information and the fact that there's no cameras in the courtroom, what's being hidden? A man's freedom is in jeopardy.
I can get closing thoughts from you on that. Let me start with you, Chelly. About a minute and a half for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very, I'm really glad to hear you say that, Joel, because I totally agree. I found this case to be very troubling from the beginning, just seeing how much the public was incited against a man who, really was the victim of a crime, of a hate crime. And that's clear in CPD's own reports, and then he faced a brutal kind of lynch mob atmosphere in our society that was very much fomented by the police and by the media, and violated his rights to be considered innocent until proven guilty. And I think it's just a huge betrayal of the public trust, because the initial response from the public was an outpouring of compassion, for the most part, of just wanting the country to change, of being disgusted by this kind of thing. And that was quickly manipulated and turned into a lynch mob atmosphere. And that was quite troubling to me. So, I hope that the public will really be upset at CPD and at the media's irresponsible behavior in this case, and that it will help protect the public going forward to not be so easily manipulated and incited, and not just believe these authority figures when they come up and talk in an authoritative tone, but that we really look at them as our equals, and we look at them and see if they're question them, not be incited by their words.
Attorney Davis, the last minute belongs to you.
Oh, wow. Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about the credibility issue here, because that is really what this case turns on. And thank you for your question, Chris, and thank you for your comments, Jewel. Let's look at these brothers. When the police searched their home, they found an arsenal of weapons of war and high-powered tactical weapons in the closet. Santita, do you know about that? A Glock 45, 9mm gun, rifle, shotgun, countless rounds of ammunition, traces of cocaine and heroin, multiple computers, multiple cell phones. We ask, how did they manage to suffer no criminal consequences whatsoever for possession of this contraband? We also ask, well, what kinds of activities are these men engaged in? One brother is a felon who's previously convicted of assault, similar to the assault against Jussie. And there are so many inconsistencies. They made several statements to the police, to the grand jury, and now at trial. And there's so many holes and inconsistencies in their statements. So, this is a credibility contest, really, between Jussie and the state's witnesses. The star prosecution witnesses are Abel and Olo Sundaro. And Shelley's also talked extensively about the credibility of the investigating officers. So if this is a credibility contest, which it is, Jussie will win. I am confident of that. And we call on everyone who cares about freedom and democracy, everyone who stands against police terror, racism, political repression, and homophobia, to use their social media handles to get out the truth about this case. And I'm so glad that Chris now understands, the truth is getting some inkling of what the truth is. We call on local Chicagoans to come up, to show up, rather, for trial, to support Jussie, and to foil this racist, homophobic attack on our brother.
Absolutely. It's evil.
Yes, and I just wanted to say very quickly, there is an Instagram page. You can check out Coalition for Jussie, where you can see this other perspective.
Hey, everybody. If you all can stay with me for a couple of minutes after we get off the air, we'll just get some closing remarks on YouTube. But everybody, Coalition, what is it?
Coalition for Jussie, FOR.
Jussie as in justice, everybody. How about that? And as in Jussie. He was named after Reverend and Justice. Isn't that sweet? And to fully disclose, I was with them on Saturday. We had a wonderful time with that family, and I'm just praying for them, pulling for them, because we who believe in freedom and justice cannot rest. You cannot rest. One day it happens to someone else. The other day it happens to you. Think about that, everybody. Think about that. Think about that. Think about it. Think about it. They say that you got a depression when it's a recession when your neighbor doesn't have a job. It's a depression when you don't have a job. Don't let it be like that. Fight for everybody. Fight for freedom and justice all the time. I love you, everybody. God bless you. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Attorney Davis?
Yes.
Would you like to say anything else? We're still on YouTube and Facebook.
Maybe one other thing.
Of course.
Okay. So I think this was a politically motivated case, and I won't get into all of the reasons. It's a racist.
Elaborate a little bit, because I think that we forget that several years ago we threw a mayor out over Laquan McDonald, and that it happened in this context.
That's right. So let's talk about that. At the time of the attack on Jussie, early 2019, the Chicago Police Department's gross misconduct was on full view. It was dominating the national headlines, right? And the CPD and Chicago itself were being portrayed in an extremely unfavorable light, right? In fact, it was considered the coerced police confession capital of the country. It was there was a federal investigation of CPD for gross civil rights violations. There was a lot of disgruntlement about the $1.5 billion in public monies paid out in police terror settlements. And of course, at the top of the headlines was that was the Laquan McDonald convictions of CPD officers for shooting a young black man 16 times and then constructing an elaborate cover-up of their crime. And I think Shelley, with her brilliant research, found that one of the officers who was instrumental in the Laquan McDonald cover-up was assigned to none other than this case of Jussie Smollett. And there's also Chicago's reputation for the torture of black men and as a false confession capital of the country, as I said. So all of this was on full view, dominating the headlines in early 2019. So I believe to save face and distract from this terrible publicity, CPD glommed onto the case of a black gay celebrity to concoct the story of a hate crime hoax. So when they did that, when Eddie Johnson, started leading this media charge, who himself, by the way, was fired for lying, right, and unethical behavior, in fact, for covering up unethical behavior. So as if by magic, the public and media attention quickly shifted to praise the prowess of CPD investigators who purportedly solved the mystery of a celebrity who cynically staged his own hate crime. So that's part of the political motivation. They desperately needed to save face in that time, exactly at that time, January 2019. And there are other things we could say, but we've got to get to trial.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm so glad that you're with us, and I'm glad that, because as you talk, you have your Chris's who are out there, and you have your Elliots who are honest about this is how I feel. But I will say this, he was listening, and I appreciate that, Elliot, from Palatine. You were open to listening, and that's all we can ask. That's all we can ask. That's all we can ask. Chris, thank you. Elliot, thank you. Jewel, thank you. Because these are nuggets of information that we just do not have. And I thank you, Shelley, for all that you have been doing for this great, brilliant investigative work. You're so courageous. And we need you. That's why we have to support independent media, everybody, because this is what you get. Corporate media is what we've been getting, and it leads us down a road toward injustice, and toward the dissolution of our own liberties and freedoms. Think about that, everybody. Attorney Davis, you know how I feel about you and your family. And I thank God for you. You all just do not stop. And we need some folks in our lineage who do not stop. And so thank God for your parents today, for you, your sister, for all of you, for all that you all just don't stop. Can't stop, don't stop, won't stop. And I love it. And you, Shelley?
And it's mutual. I love you. I love your family. I am so heartened by your continuing and your parents continuing this never-ending struggle of freedom.
Well, these old soldiers, they just don't stop. They can't get off the battlefield. I just said, Dr. Davis.
You cannot rest.
You cannot rest. I have up at the courtroom. I'll never forget that. I've kept it for 50 years. Oh, yeah. Of course, because I wanted an afro. Okay, I was a child. What? Okay. And I was working on it, though. Yeah. But thank you. And thank you for all that you're doing for Jussie.
Thank you for your reporting. Thank you for your reporting of this. And Shelley, that was the only article I could find way back then, that was telling the truth about this case. So I have to really acknowledge and lift up both of you for this reporting.
Well, I thank Shelley, because when I saw her articles, she knows I found her. I said, you got to come on my show. It's new. I don't care. And I don't care what people are saying. I think you're telling the truth. Let me let you on here. And so God bless you. And I can't wait to call back and get in tomorrow. I want to know what happened in the courtroom, because we don't have cameras. You are our eyes.
Yes.
And everybody is thanking you this morning for your great info. So I love you. Give my love to the Smolletts. I love you. God bless you.
Love you back.
Thanks so much, Santita.
God bless. And it is great info. John, and hey, Keith Fluid, you missed the show, but you don't want to miss this, because we got great information on Jussie Smollett, and I want you to share it, Keith. Please, 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 please do. Everybody, I just love you, love you, love you, love you, and thank you. You just make it worthwhile for me to get up in the morning. I thank God for getting me up in the morning to be with you. I love you, everybody. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Devin, Andreas, thank you for a great show as always. God bless.